Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for coming to our first workshop, How to Take AI's Job and Keep Yours. And I'll just pass it over to our host.
Hello. Thank you for coming to my workshop. My name is Calvin. The workshop's name is How to Take AI's Job and Keep Yours. Um, if there are any questions or if you have any, I guess, thoughts throughout the workshop, feel free to type it in the chat. I have like a question time period at the end, but if I do see anything interesting or anything that, like a topic kind of comes up that's relevant to the current discussion at hand, I will, maybe talk about it. So, um, yeah, let's get started. Otherwise, I think the topic of this talk is you know, kind of self-explanatory, right? Like in this current age, the hot topic, right, is AI going to replace you or everyone else, right? Like it doesn't really just stop at AI replacing designers. People are saying, we don't need software engineers anymore. Blah blah blah. Jobs are going to disappear. Um, I mean, even yesterday, you can kind of I was on LinkedIn, right? Like you can kind of see posts where people will say things like, "Oh, is it over? Right? Is it over for designers?" This new tool has come out. I think Google Stitch is like the latest, right? In a long list of tools that have come out where people claim perhaps it's over for designers, right? Like we have no more need for designers because this AI powered tool, design tool, right? Like can do what designers can do. Um, so right, like the question kind of gets asked over and over. Is it over for designers, right? Is this new tool that kind of came out, is it going to replace you? And I think, you know, the short answer is probably no, right? Like we've been hearing about this, you've been hearing about this or reading the clickbaity articles and posts about this for months, right? And the truth is companies are still hiring designers. The truth is designers are still very much busy at work. Um, right. I'll kind of explain a little bit what I mean here, right? Like there's a lot of noise. The new shiny thing always comes out, and I will admit, right, advancements in AI have been very fast, like a lot faster than maybe a lot of people would have thought was possible. Every week, right, a new model comes out. Oh, it's ChatGPT 5.4 is, whatever the best model ever, right? And a week before that, it was like, oh, Opus 4.6 or something blows, whatever previous thing out of the water. Uh, but I don't know. Every time a new model comes out, everyone says it's the best one ever, and we kind of just return to normal afterwards, right? Like we proceed with our lives, we move on, we continue to go to work, go to school. Uh, doesn't seem like we've been replaced, just because a new model or a new tool or whatever came out. And the second thing that has been, I think, talked about a lot is, oh, is Figma dead, right? Is this tool that you spent hours learning, hours, doing work in, is that going away? Um, I don't know, right? Like if it goes away, we have tools that were here before Figma. I don't know if anyone in this room is old enough to remember before Figma, it was like a brief period of time when something called Sketch was the kind of king of design software, right? It was Mac only. It wasn't like online collaborative, like you saved your files. And before Sketch, right, people actually used Adobe Photoshop, right, for UI design, which kind of feels very weird and strange today, right? Because Adobe Photoshop is not a very good UI design tool by any measure, at all. So, even if Figma does eventually, whatever, go away, something else will take over, right? I don't think we're going to be able to go without a design tool, uh, right? Photoshop exists, Illustrator exists, Figma currently exists, right? Something may come along and take its place, but I don't think AI will be the main thing, right, that replaces Figma if it does go away. And the third thing that you inevitably see a lot of when any new technology or any new, I don't know, trend comes into play, right? Like everyone's like, oh, how do you monetize it, right? Um, Before it was, oh, crypto is the way to financial freedom, right? Like you got to buy NFTs or whatever. Now it's a lot of, oh, how do you use AI to make money, right? Like how do you, like whatever, if you open TikTok or Instagram Reels, it's like, oh, I generated some website in a day with whatever Lovable or some other AI tool, sold it for thousands of dollars. Please do not fall for or listen to that kind of stuff, right? Like it's really not all that it's cracked up to be. And also, um, you'll see a lot of people talk about making money, but if they were in fact busy making money with AI, they probably wouldn't have time to post about it, right? So, uh, all this to say, just a lot of noise that you should really not pay attention to. Which doesn't mean ignore AI, right? But it means ignore all the other people talking about it, right? It's all still dependent on your own experience, and you still gotta try it for yourself. So, uh, in essence, right, the theme of this talk is kind of just the AI is as good as you are, right? Like, I think the truth is AI is currently not at a place where it can replace you. Uh, I think the important thing to remember, if there's anything you remember from this talk, is that when it comes to AI, right, your input is going to affect your output pretty much almost 100%, right? Like if you feed it garbage, it's gonna spit out garbage. And what I mean by that is, you know, talking to a human, uh, you can give them, let's say, let's say you give your friend, very vague instructions, right, to do something. And, they don't ask you any clarifying questions. They kind of just, assume, right? Like fill in the gaps by themselves. And the result is probably not going to be very good because you didn't give your friend, the human, much context, right, in your question or whatever you're asking them. With AI, we somehow kind of expect that just because we type into a chat box, right, and we press enter, it spits out this really long, very well thought out, well written response, right? But why do we take it for the truth, right? Like it's really no better, right, than your friend that got the imperfect info from you and made up something. So, like, let's talk about this in the context of, taking your job, right, as a designer or someone in tech. So, uh, you kind of see people say, well, we don't need designers anymore, right? I can just type a prompt into whatever, right? Build a thing, it'll spit out a working prototype or a working app or whatever. Why do I need a designer to design it for me, right? And uh, people seem to think that, with something like this, where you say, hey, let's build like a to-do app, right? You can list out the requirements here. You can, tell it to generate $100 million, right? Annual recurring revenue. Don't make any mistakes. You've probably seen all the memes. Uh, and also, just before we even talk about the prompt itself, it's like if you get into design, you kind of see everyone starts to do their design side projects with like, oh, I made like a weather app, or oh, I made a notes app, or a to-do app, or like a fitness tracker app, right? Or like something simple, right? Which is totally fine. But for some reason, you also see this right now with people who are getting into like vibe coding, and they're like, oh, I made like a working to-do app, weather app, fitness app in an afternoon. But now the difference is I get to ship it and hopefully like try and make some money off it. And you kind of realize that, well, do we really need like 5,000 to do apps? Do we really need, just because you can build an app does not mean you've built something that users actually want, right? I think before even going into how much prompting can get you in an AI kind of coding assisted thing. You have to think about, well, is the thing you're, putting into existence something that's actually desirable, right? Like that question has never really changed, right? No matter like what technology has been available to us. So with that being said, I'm going to uh, open up Chat GPT Codex, which should be this window. So I have pasted that prompt in this chat window, right? So what I'm going to do is, oh, I guess I should switch to a model, maybe just the latest model. I'm going to just run this, right? I'm just going to let it go. And I'm going to go back to the talk, and we're going to come back to this at the end of the talk and see what it spits out. So this generic kind of to do app prompt, let's see what it does. So while the thing works in the background, I'm going to go over a real example, right, of actually perhaps how realistically, right, how the workflow as a designer for you changes if you decide to, use AI or whatever in your day to day. So I recently, and by recently I mean last Friday, went to a track day where I'm part of a car club. We drive the same car. We're kind of somehow got connections to Toyota. They invited us. Long story short, um, I was voluntold to collect money and registration for this event, and uh, because we're all volunteers, there's no official like website or whatever, right? None of that stuff. So it really was, everyone who volunteered for this event did something that they were good at, right? Like some people were good at like, I don't know, coordinating logistics. I guess was good at collecting people's money and doing the registration. But right, as I was doing that, the gears in my head started turning, right? So step one, right? With any project, you kind of have to determine, hey, here's an opportunity that I can take for this work that I want to do, right? So someone in the group chat asked, like, hey, is there a rundown schedule, whatever, of the event that we can have, right? And I was like, yeah, I'll send out something soon, I'll finish scrolling my whatever Instagram reels. And then uh, with track days, generally speaking, they're organized on like a Google sheet, right? Like these are people who are not really that into technology, right? Like they like cars. They kind of just, this is like the simplest free method, right, to organize a track day. It's not very, it works, right? It's not very pretty, but it works. Um, I was like, if this is like kind of a special event, right? There are like special guests from Toyota or whatever coming. Uh, a Google Sheet probably does not feel very special, right? It kind of feels like, oh, everything else about this day is kind of cool, but man, like I gotta pull out my phone, I gotta download the Google Sheets app on my phone just to check the schedule. But if anyone here has used like Google Sheets or just spreadsheets on your phone, it's kind of weird, right? Like spreadsheets are meant for like a wide monitor, and you have this like vertical portrait device. So I thought, well, okay, I can build something here, right? Like in a day, maybe. So, part two, right? If you have a product or a project that you're building, you gotta define the requirements, right? Like you gotta if you don't, you kind of tend to run into issues where your project runs really long, right? Because you forgot to say, I'm going to stop here. These are all the things I'm going to build. But in general, right, I had to do the work of saying, okay, I don't want this to be on Google Sheets. I want this to be, mobile first because we're at a racetrack. No one's going to have a laptop. As a result, Signal might be not so good. Make it lightweight, fast loading, and then I have to go and talk to people and get the specific requirements where it's like, hey, what's the day of actual info? What stuff do we need on this event page, right? At this point, no AI, right, has been prompted. This is all work that you have all been doing, hopefully, before AI was a thing for design, right? For design projects, you hopefully go talk to your users, you go gather requirements. If you ask ChatGPT, like, hey, I'm building a whatever event page for this track day, right? It'll probably spit out something that, is like an outline, but does it really know anything about your event? No, right? Like it can't assume anything. It doesn't know your intent, right? So you got to still do the legwork yourself. So all of that work, right, to get the info, to figure it out, comes into this prompt, right? I was like, I want to use right AI to kind of help me build this in one day, right? Like that's kind of why I did it. So I spent the time to write this prompt. I'm not going to read out the whole thing, but kind of scrolling through this, you'll see that compared to the to-do app prompt from earlier, right? This is a very long thing. It's actually pretty much if you go to work or if you worked on a project or if you see like a ticket for engineering, right? This is usually kind of what it looks like, right? Like a product requirement doc. Uh, wow, this seems like it's starting to look like, just work, right? This just starts to look like work that you've been doing already, except you're just feeding it into AI this time and making it, you know, slightly more efficient. But, with putting the prompt in, like this very long prompt, right? It spends, 10 minutes figuring it out and building the thing. Like the first draft it spat out, and this is kind of on purpose too, where I said like don't fill it in with info. It just spits out this very like so much work, right? All this requirement gathering, all this, prompt writing and like editing of that spits out like this event page that looks totally generic. It looks like wow, I just put default whatever components on the page. It has everything, right? But I can't ship this. No one can ship this. So the next thing is, well, I guess, you gotta put it out there, right? Get feedback on this. So the next kind of version of this was, okay, I'm gonna find a font, right? I'm gonna spend an hour looking through my fonts. This one feels a little better. This one feels more like race car track day, right? Like I'm gonna put a participant code on here. And then boom, version two, I'm like, hey, this is something I can show the volunteers. I'm like, hey, can you guys look through this? Please like read it, right? Can you tell me what other content info, blah, 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 I need on this, right? Uh, again, if you are working on a project, a design project, you gotta go talk to real people. People hate talking to AI, right? If you have to call into customer support, like, oh, the makes me so mad, right? Like if I pick up the phone and I'm like, oh, this is an AI and I cannot get to a human. No one wants to talk to an AI about these things, right? So you got to go talk to the person yourself. You got to go gather the feedback yourself. You cannot just put this into chat, like the screenshot into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you give me feedback? Because it's just going to give you the most generic feedback because it doesn't know anything about what you want to do with this. So after this feedback round, right? Oh man, I gotta go back to Figma because there's no way I can just keep on prompting like, hey, can you change this color in the background to black? Uh, and then just wait for the code to update and like see what happens. No, like the smarter thing to do is because we're designers, we go into Figma, we take the product that we have, which is this, the white screened, whatever, white background track day, do some work, right? Do iterations, do actual design things, and then go back, feed it in, right? Here's, for example, um, I needed to clarify, like, hey, what does it look like for the pages that have, info about the track? Like, what does it look like, different times of the day during the schedule? What does it look like, right? If you have the different live schedule at the top, right? What does the page, branding, all this look like? At the end, like it's also these are all I think there was like 53 or something threads that I opened up in building this, right? There's like 53 different conversations with just for this simple event page. So if anyone tells you you can write a single prompt, right, and it generates you like a perfect, like they're totally lying, right? There's always gonna be things that you can add, but also things that you're gonna have to fix. And uh, this, right, of course, it only took me a day, but it's not like, hey, you can just type it in, leave, and get a coffee, and then somehow like your product is going to generate like $1 million, right? Like it's just not, we're just not there. It's just not possible. If it was, people would be doing that instead of talking about that. Um, right. And stuff like I had to go into After Effects and like do this animation myself, right? Which was like take the photo, keyframe it, right? Like stretch it, whatever. But you can't really ask AI to do that because it's going to generate you something that is way more complicated or different than what you want. Um, and at the end, right, like the page got shipped, it was sent out to people, people used it, they really liked it, whatever, it doesn't matter. But um, the point is, right, like this is a very simple web page, right? And yes, it had to be used by real people, so I had to make sure it like worked, was relatively bug free, but uh right, that there's no way that you can just say, hey, like please build this for me and have the AI spit out this result just as like immediately, right? It's just impossible. um right, and I think if we go back to our demo, let me just open it up. Is there, right, okay, so it says the, all right, so we're gonna share, go back to, so it's done, right? It says, hey, if you open up the index.html, it says, oh, the app works, the revenue outcome between you, haha, whatever. You're so funny, ChatGPT. Um, I'm going to paste the, I'm going to open it up in the other, there it is. You can see that. So this is the to-do app that generated. If I inspect, like, yeah, I want it to be on like a phone. This is roughly what it looks like, right? Like it's fine, right? This kind of feels like all the other to-do apps out there. If you open up your Apple to-do app, it kind of looks like this, but it doesn't have all the unnecessary text. If you add, make money, oh, cool, it works, right? It works like a to-do app, right? And um, I want to say that yes, this is very cool that you can just generate something very simple like this and effectively, what, like 5 minutes? But if we go back, I actually ran this exercise like a few times before I did the talk, right? I used the exact same prompt, um, changed the model like 5.4, 5.3 just because I realized, oh, the same model tends to be trained, I guess, on, because it's trained on maybe a set of data, it tends to generate like a similar looking prototype. Like if you can see on the very right here, this is the same model, it generated like something kind of similar. But yeah, like you can kind of see they look kind of like a generic thing, right? Like they kind of look like, if you just go and look at AI generated designs, these all kind of look like they come from the same family, right? Like there's not really that much like it's kind of bland, right? Like there's no taste. AI does not have taste, right? Like, and I think that's kind of the important thing to realize here, which is as we're coming to the end of this talk, what do you do, right? Like, do you just roll over and let it take your job? Well, no, right? Like, you should definitely, uh, I call it being skeptical, which is, if any new thing comes out, it's always good to question it, right? To not take the examples given to you as the truth. Um, Try it out, right? Like, don't have to be like a first adopter to anything. You can kind of take a step back and see what people do with these new things and have them work out the bugs, right? Like you've all seen the posts where people say they use Claude Code or whatever and it deletes their entire hard drive. Let other people do that first, follow along, but like, yeah, don't ignore it, right? But you can definitely be skeptical, definitely ask questions, definitely question things right before you maybe accept it or use it as part of your daily routine. The second thing is to use your brain, right? Like I think the most dangerous thing is if you outsource or offload your thinking to an AI, right? If the first thing you do is whenever you have a question, to open up like ChatGPT and ask it that exact question. I think that's kind of the danger there. Um, you should never ever, I think, rely on just the AI to do your thinking for you. You should always think about it yourself. You should always, at the very least, right, like have a rough outline in your head for what you're trying to do. Because again, the AI doesn't generate any new ideas for you, right? It kind of amplifies your input, right? Like if you give it something, you type in something, it'll, you know, kind of take it and make it maybe slightly better, but you can't make anything new, right? Because that's just not how it works. It's being trained on stuff that it already knows exists. So as a result, you got to be the one that makes the new thing. And the third thing, right, is you got to just keep working, right? There's no replacement for being good at design, being good at something. Uh, I think that's actually really the best defense you have, right? Is that if the fact that the result AI generates for you tends to be very average, then you kind of know where the average is, right? Then you know that to be better than AI, you got to keep working on yourself so that what you produce, can't just be replicated by a prompt, right? Like no one's going to hire you to make like a to-do list, but maybe someone will hire you because you know how to kind of use the tools, right? Like you don't want the machine to control you want to be the one that knows how to use the machine, and then you can hopefully you know wrangle it, right, and not let it step on you and replace you. um yeah, so we're coming up on, I guess I have 4 minutes, but if anyone has any questions in the chat, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for coming and listening to me talk about building stuff with AI. Cool. Yeah, I'll hang out here till 7 or 10:35, and then after that, I will head out.
If you guys have any questions, you guys can feel free to unmute or just text in the chat.